Man, being an APB player sure is hard. Your friends ridicule you, and on top of that, you have to spend a lot of cash to actually build a machine that'll play the game flawlessly. Or do you? Well, it feels like not a single day goes by on the APB forums without somebody complaining about performance or asking for help to build a PC that'll play the game properly, or how to optimize their game, using the advanced launcher to squeeze out the last bit of FPS that the game could possibly give you. But I did notice that a lot of people there have actually no idea what they're talking about. And a couple of weeks ago, while talking to my friend Janai, I got the idea to just experiment a bit with this. Can you actually build a PC that'll play APB properly on a very tight budget? Let's find out. I came here to the United States of America to answer this question once and for all. So I was browsing the internet and I was using a very popular site called PCPartPicker.com to find the cheapest store for the CPU I was basing my idea on. I'm not gonna say which one it is, but there is a very good reason why I chose it. This led me to a chain of stores called Micro Center, which had a store quite near where I'm staying here in Fairfax, Virginia. In addition to their already very good prices, they had a lot of rebates going, and a lot of items were on sale open box or refurbished, or had reduced price for another reason. After about 3 hours of shopping, I think I have found exactly what I need to do this build. Before we start here, I want to tell you that the focal points of performance for APB are the CPU and the hard disk. The load it puts on today's graphics card is minute at best. This also explains why the game runs so bad on AMD CPUs. It runs okay on their most high-end offering, but as soon as you get to the affordable stuff, the threaded performance is actually very poor. I've tested the game on my ITX machine running an A10 5800K APU by AMD, and even overclocking it to 4.2 GHz, it didn't run the game at more than 30 to 50 FPS or so. I've decided to base my build on the Intel Pentium G3258, which is a CPU released by Intel to celebrate the 20th anniversary of the Pentium. And if you look at the specs, you're probably gonna wonder why I did that. The frequency is not that great, L3 cache is only a mere 3 megabytes, it's only a dual core and it only has 1 thread per core. So why am I choosing this? Intel for some reason decided to unlock the multiplier on this thing, which means you can overclock it to hell. As a result of its specifications, the power consumption and the TDP are very low, which means you can push the CPU very far before actually reaching the thermal limitations. And the next very good reason is the threaded performance. If you look at the threaded performance list from Passmark, you're gonna notice that among all these very expensive high-end CPUs that cost multiple hundreds of dollars, you're gonna find this CPU with a release price of a mere $69. And that's at stock clock. Imagine what this CPU is capable of doing when overclocking. People have reported tremendous success with this CPU, sometimes even pushing it to 4.7 GHz or so. Let's talk about mainboards. The G3258 is supported on all 1150 platforms, starting with the H81, which is the lowest end chipset of them all. Contrary to what idiots tell you, the base performance in the generation of chipset is always going to be the same between them all. The only differences are luxury features such as PCI Express lanes, SATA controllers, USB controllers, and most importantly, overclocking functionality. The nice thing about this is that a lot of mainboard manufacturers actually went out of their way to include overclocking features on their lower end offerings, sometimes even tailored to this specific CPU. So to get the best value, find yourself an H81 motherboard which has these features enabled. Be aware though that you have to be using Windows 7 or 8.1 in this case, because Intel pushed a Windows update that disables these features on platforms they're not intended for. It is already included in Windows 10. Of course, if you're running a Z87 or 97 motherboard, none of this applies, and of course you can choose whichever Windows version you want to. Now with regards to the GPU and the RAM, I can only give you generic advice. As for the GPU, I reckon that anything decent with GDDR5 memory is gonna do just fine. As for the RAM, 8 gigs should do fine, try to make it at least 1866 speed, well 1600 is gonna do okay if you're really low on cache, and remember, speed or bandwidth is more important than size, and remember to make sure that the memory is running in dual channel mode. Earlier I said that APB taxes the hard disk. This might sound a bit strange to you, so I'm gonna explain it quickly. Years and years ago, APB used to cache assets of players and objects in your districts into memory. But then they decided they wanted to cache assets on disk instead. The caching executes lots of disk IOs, which is why the game feels stuttery and laggy and has lots of tiny freezes if you're running it on a mechanical hard disk. This is where a lot of the performance loss in the last few years has come from. Anyway, to sum this all up, get an SSD, the game will thank you for it. But wait, there's more. So this is what I've bought, but there are ways to reduce the cost of this build even further. First of all, I went for a Z97 motherboard, which was by far the most expensive option. Had I gone for a H81 chipset or so, that would have been $40 less right there. And then there's the graphics card. I paid the price premium for an Nvidia card just so I could use Shadowplay. The GTX 950 is a rather expensive option, but you could go for a cheap, let's say, R7 250 or something like that. That would have cost me between $60 and $100 or so. They would have been fine, but I chose this one because it was on clearance. And then there's the RAM. I could have gone for less at lower speeds, but the clearance sale was just too tempting on this one. And then there's the SSD. I only chose this one because they gave me $10 off if I bought a CPU with it, so you could have saved another, say, $20 if you went for a cheaper option. My operating system of choice was Windows 10. The OS was installed in no time and so were the drivers and the game. Of course I couldn't help myself and I had to mess around with the OC features before I got to work. I am going to show you the performance of the game on this machine, and I intend to do that with 3 different configs. I am going to showcase these configs with 2 scenes. First of all, on a populated district driving in a car, and second of all in a populated district going to close quarters environments and throwing a grenade. Every scene is going to be shown twice, once at stock clock and once at 4.3 GHz. This concludes the testing of APB. As you can see, the game runs between 80 and 100 FPS in most situations and stays above 60 FPS virtually all the time when driving around the district. And the good news is the fun doesn't end here. To be fair, you're not gonna have much luck running any of the modern AAA titles at ultra settings or anything, but I tested Rocket League and CSGO and even the new Unreal Tournament, and they all run way above 60 FPS, which I guess means that you're not damned to play APB forever with this build. The final cost of the build ended up being $343.85, and if you were to go for the cheaper options I outlined earlier, you could save another $50 to $60 here, pulling the bill under $300. And if you were to get really clever, you could carry over a few parts from your old system, like the case or the power supply, and buy the parts used. That way I'm sure you can build this machine for around $250 or even less. Well, I guess the result speaks for itself. Yes, you can build a machine that plays APB on a very tight budget. Thank you very much for watching. I congratulate you if you made it this far without skipping. And if you want to play APB someday, just add me on Steam or on APB. The profile name is the same as my YouTube channel. If not, that's fine. I will see you later. Bye.